Rumi once whispered across time, "The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep." But what are these secrets? And why must they be heard in silence before the world awakens? Because there are parts of you that can only be heard when the world stops speaking. There is a presence that lives beneath your name, your roles, your habits. A being that waits patiently, endlessly for you to turn within. Not the you that scrolls and performs, but the you that dreams, aches, remembers. The one who was here before your first memory and will remain after your final breath. That self is not found in the crowd. It is born in solitude. In the next few minutes, we will walk with Rumi into the sacred terrain of the soul, into the silence where the truth first begins to breathe. We will speak of the power of being alone, not as an escape, but as a return. We will explore what it means to face the void, to know yourself, and to dissolve the illusion that you were ever disconnected from love. This is the spiritual path Rumi walked. This is the journey inward. We fear being alone, not because we dislike silence, but because in silence the masks fall. In the presence of others, we learn how to shape ourselves. We learn what to say to please, how to move to belong, how to smile to be accepted. But in solitude, there is no audience. There is no script. There is only the echo of your own breathing, the slow rhythm of your thoughts unfolding, the weight of presence pressing inward. And it is there, in that still chamber, that the journey truly begins. Rumi knew this. He did not romanticize loneliness, but he honored solitude as sacred space, a retreat not from life, but into it. He once wrote, "A little while alone in your room will prove more valuable than anything else that could ever be given you." These words are not poetry, they are prophecy, because the soul does not awaken in crowd, it awakens in isolation, when the world finally stops speaking and your essence begins to whisper. In solitude, you begin to notice things you never had the time or courage to see. You notice the quiet ache beneath your smile, the thoughts that circle endlessly like birds in a cage, the parts of you that never found language. There is no one to impress here, no one to lie to, no one to perform for. It is in this aloneness that the true self begins to stir, not the self built on reactions or shaped by memory, but the unchanging presence beneath it all. It is uncomfortable at first, the silence can feel deafening, the stillness unbearable, because we are not used to witnessing ourselves without distraction. We are used to running from pain, from truth, from the vast unknown of our own hearts. But if you stay, if you remain seated in the fire, something starts to soften. The racing thoughts settle, the armor begins to loosen. The stories you've told yourself about who you are, what you lack, what others did to you, they begin to dissolve. What's left is raw, real, and utterly human. And in that rawness, you are no longer fragmented, you are whole. The purpose of solitude is not to isolate you from life, but to reconnect you with it. Because how can you truly meet another if you have never met yourself? How can you love someone honestly if you have not stood in the mirror and faced the parts of yourself you've long disowned? In solitude, you begin to integrate. You begin to forgive. You begin to remember that you are not your wounds, not your past, not your failures. You are the one who sees them all. You are the witness. The eternal awareness that was here before the pain and will be here after the healing. This awareness is subtle. It does not announce itself. It waits for your surrender. And when you finally stop fighting the moment, when you no longer resist your own company, it rises, quiet, expansive, like a gentle sunrise over an ancient sea. There is a reason every mystic has wandered into the desert, into the forest, into the cave, not to escape the world, but to peel away its illusions, not to become holy, but to become real. Solitude is not an absence, it is a fullness. Of insight, of clarity, of communion. It is the place where God speaks, not in thunder, but in stillness. It is the moment when you realize that your deepest wisdom has been inside you all along. buried beneath the noise you once mistook for life. In this sacred quiet, you begin to hear your soul, not as a voice, but as a knowing, a presence that does not need to explain itself. It just is. And for the first time, you feel that being is enough. You do not need to do. You do not need to prove. You are allowed to simply exist, and that existence is holy. But solitude is not always gentle. As you dive deeper, you will meet shadows. You will confront the memories you buried, the emotions you numbed, the desires you denied. And this is where many turn back. They say, I am too broken. I cannot handle this. I don't want to feel this much. But these are the growing pains of returning to yourself. Healing is not always light. Sometimes it is a deep and necessary darkness, a reckoning, a dismantling of everything false so that what is real may rise. And if you can remain through this dismantling, if you can resist the urge to run when your inner world begins to tremble, then you will discover something extraordinary beneath the rubble. A silence that is not empty but infinite, a space that is not hollow but sacred, a presence that is vast, ancient, and alive. This is the threshold of the void. It is not something you find, it is something you fall into. And here, language fails. Here, the intellect surrenders, because this is no longer the realm of the self you thought you were. This is the beginning of the great undoing, the moment you stop seeking answers and instead begin to dissolve into the question itself. Solitude prepares you for this. It clears the noise, it strips away the masks, it brings you to the edge of your own being. And at that edge, there is nothing left to cling to, no belief, no name, no identity, only the vast, unnameable mystery that we call the void. And so as we move forward in this journey, we must ask, can we stand still before that abyss? Can we let go of the need to define, to control, to understand? Can we trust that within the silence, something greater waits? Now we take the next step. Now we face the void. And there is a moment in the seeker's path that cannot be taught, only entered. It is not lit by insight nor softened by love. It is vast, cold, and silent. It arrives not as a reward for your spiritual efforts, but as a natural unfolding, the way night follows sunset. This is the void, not a metaphor, not a crisis, but a living encounter with the raw, borderless silence that lies beneath all things. After the shedding of distractions, after the peeling away of masks in solitude, something begins to press in on the edges of your awareness. A stillness too wide to grasp, a space that stares back. You feel it in your bones. This is not the quiet of comfort. This is the quiet that dissolves identities, and it is terrifying because everything you thought you were begins to loosen. The mind panics. The ego resists. It wants to label, to cling, to run. But there is nowhere to run in the void. There is only the invitation to stay, to surrender, to dissolve. Rumi did not fear the void. He lived in it. He danced within it. He whispered, "Why are you so afraid of silence? Silence is the root of everything. If you spiral into its void, 100 voices will thunder messages you long to hear." And he was right. But those messages do not come immediately. First comes the trembling, the disorientation, the loss of all anchors. You begin to realize how much of your life was built on noise. Not just external noise, but internal noise. Stories, fears, ambitions, identities, all of it begins to fade here. You are no longer the child seeking approval, the worker chasing success, the lover searching for completion. You are simply presence. But to become that presence, everything else must die. The void is not a place of punishment. It is a womb, a sacred chamber where all things are unmade and remade. But it is not gentle. It offers no comforts, no consolations. It demands your full surrender, not as a test, but as a passage. You cannot take your name through the void. You cannot carry your beliefs, your trophies, your wounds. You must walk naked into that darkness, stripped of past, future identity. And yet, what you find there is not absence, but essence. Not hollowness, but wholeness. The void is not the end of you. It is the end of who you are not. There is a silence that heals not by speaking, but by holding. It holds all your contradictions. It holds your shame and your beauty, your strength and your sorrow, your longing and your fear. It does not judge, it simply absorbs. It reflects back, not your image, but your being. And for the first time, you begin to feel what has always been there, an unmovable, unchangeable awareness that is untouched by time or story. This awareness is not personal, it does not belong to you. It is not yours, it is you. And once you've touched that silence, once you've been held by it, you know something that cannot be forgotten. That everything you've ever searched for was never outside you. It was buried beneath the noise you clung to in fear. But the void is not a place to live forever. It is a crossing, a doorway, a sacred gate through which all seekers must pass. And what lies beyond it is not more silence, but presence. Life. Real life. Not the life of compulsions and roles, but the life that moves through all things with clarity and grace. The void clears the field. It breaks the old shell, and from that brokenness something new begins to stir. Not as an idea, but as a living experience. You wake up. You open your eyes not outwardly, but inwardly. And what you see is not form or shape, but now you see presence. But before we speak of presence, we must honor this place we now stand in. We must give thanks for the unmaking, for the terrifying silence that stripped us of our false selves, because without it, we would never have remembered who we are. The void does not destroy, it reveals. And what it reveals is a mystery beyond thought, beyond language. You cannot speak it, you can only become it. And when you do, when you emerge from that sacred dark with no name and no map, you do not return as who you were. You return as awareness itself. So breathe, let what was die. Let what was false be buried. Feel the weight of silence not as a burden, but as a blessing. Let the stillness fill you, not to numb, but to open. Let it open the space where the next truth can rise, and when it does, you will not need to understand it. You will feel it. In your breath, in your heartbeat, in your feet on the ground, you will feel that something has shifted, not because something was added, but because something false has fallen away. And now, from this silence, from this sacred void, we take our next step. Not back into the world of distraction, but forward into the light of presence, into the quiet miracle of being fully here. When the void has emptied you, when the illusions have been peeled away, what remains is not a blankness, but a silence saturated with presence. Not the presence of a deity above you or a truth outside of you, but the presence that arises from within, soft, unshakable, alive. You don't step into this presence with fanfare or revelation. You simply become aware that it has been here all along, waiting. And in that moment of awareness, something deep shifts. The world does not change, but the way you see it does. Your breath slows, not because someone told you to meditate, but because your body finally remembers it is safe. Your eyes begin to notice the light resting on ordinary things. A leaf, a hand, a cup of water. Time no longer feels like something to outrun. You are here, and here is enough. This is the beginning of the inner journey. Not the dramatic ascent to enlightenment as often portrayed, but the subtle, quiet movement toward total intimacy with life. Rumi described it with devastating simplicity. And you? When will you begin that long journey into yourself? These words are not a challenge. They are an invitation. The journey is not about going somewhere new. It's about returning to where you've always been, but with new eyes. And what those eyes begin to see is not mystical or strange. It is profoundly human. You start to notice how many times you betray your own truth in a single day. How often you leave the present moment to revisit the past or control the future. You begin to see how quickly fear rises, how easily joy slips by unnoticed, how deeply you long to be seen, even by yourself. But presence is not just about noticing what is around you. It is about becoming aware of the one who is aware. It is turning your gaze inward, not to think more, but to see more clearly. To recognize that beneath every thought, every feeling, every role you play, there is something that does not move, something that does not change. This something is not a thing at all. It is the quiet watcher, the unnameable I am. The space in which all things arise and once you become aware of that space, your entire life becomes a meditation. Washing dishes becomes a sacred act. Speaking becomes an expression of presence. Silence becomes companionship. Rumi danced on the edge of this awareness, not as a concept, but as a lived reality. His whirling was not performance, it was surrender, a dissolving of the self into the now. He did not seek to escape the world, he spun deeper into it, until the boundaries between inner and outer, self and other, melted like mist in sunlight. And that is what presence does. It dissolves the imagined borders. You no longer see yourself as separate from what you observe. You are not in the world, you are of it. The tree is not over there and you over here. There is only experience unfolding, and in that unfolding, a quiet ecstasy. This presence does not ask for rituals, it does not need dogma, it asks only one thing: your attention. Not the narrow attention of control or analysis, but the soft attention of love, the kind of attention you would give to a child learning to walk, gentle, patient, without demand. When you give your life that kind of attention, it begins to speak. Not in words, but in feelings, in signs, in the subtle movements of intuition. The universe becomes less of a machine and more of a mirror, reflecting not your desires, but your essence. And you begin to walk not with plans, but with presence. You begin to live as a response, not a reaction. But this journey is not without its challenges. Presence reveals everything, especially the parts of you you've hidden. The inner journey is not always a path of light. It will take you through sorrow, anger, envy, emptiness, but presence holds it all. It does not reject, it does not fix, it simply sees, and in being seen, the pain begins to transform. Not through force, but through recognition. You begin to realize that your emotions are not obstacles, but messengers, that your discomfort is not a sign of failure, but an invitation to return. Every trigger becomes a doorway, every wound a window. And this is where the real journey happens, not in the moments of peace, but in the moments of resistance. Can you stay present when you're angry? When you're afraid? When you're lonely? Can you sit with the ache in your chest without reaching for a distraction? Can you listen to your thoughts without believing every one of them? This is the fire of presence, and it refines you. Slowly, lovingly, you burn, not into ashes, but into truth, into clarity, into authenticity, until what remains is no longer the image of who you thought you were, but the living truth of who you are. And here, you begin to notice something even deeper. As you sit in presence, as you open to what is, there is a warmth, a subtle hum beneath the silence, a current moving through all things. It's not an idea, It's not a philosophy. It's a felt sense. A presence within the presence, and it feels like love. Not the romantic love that comes and goes, not the conditional love that demands or withholds, but a love that simply is. Rumi called it the beloved, and he saw it in everything: the sunlight through leaves, the grief in a mother's voice, the tears of longing that fall silently at night. The beloved was not separate from life. It was life itself, unveiled. This love is not something you achieve. It is what you uncover. It does not arrive with thunder or light. It arrives in the moment you stop looking for it. It appears when the seeker dissolves and only presence remains. It is found not in grasping but in surrender, and you will know it not because it tells you its name, but because it feels like home. A return, a remembering, a soft, wordless yes. And so, the inner journey that began in solitude, that passed through the fire of the void, that opened the door to presence, now begins to blossom into love. Not a concept, not a goal, but a quiet realization that you were never alone, that behind the silence, beneath the presence, within the breath, something has always been waiting, watching, holding, loving. This is the beloved, and now we turn toward it. Now we open the final door. Now we begin to remember divine love. Love, that quiet, ancient pulse beneath all things. It has no voice, yet it speaks in every language. It has no face, yet it looks out from every pair of eyes. It is not bound by form, yet it lives within every form. This is the love that Rumi devoted his life to, the love he called the beloved. Not a person, not an emotion, but the divine presence that dwells within all things and reveals itself only to those willing to shed every layer that is not love. The beloved is not found through seeking. The more you chase it, the further it recedes. But the moment you stop, the moment you drop into stillness and become fully present, you realize it has been with you all along, watching, waiting, loving you even when you could not love yourself. This is not the love of desire. It is not a love that takes. It is a love that sees, a love that accepts, a love that burns everything false, not out of cruelty, but so that what is real may finally breathe. And this is why the path to divine love is not always tender. Sometimes it is fire, sometimes it is loss, sometimes it is the breaking open of everything you thought you needed in order to feel safe. Because love, real love, wants only one thing: your truth. And your truth cannot be reached through comfort. It must be excavated, uncovered, revealed. And so the beloved begins to move through your life, not always with caresses, but with chisels. Not always with fulfillment, but with longing. Because longing is how love wakes us. Longing is the sacred ache that reminds us we are more than flesh, more than role, more than mind. Longing is the language of the soul, calling itself home. Rumi understood this. His poems were love letters to the invisible, cries of ecstasy, wounds turned into songs. The minute I heard my first love story, he wrote, I started looking for you, not knowing how blind that was. Lovers don't finally meet somewhere. They're in each other all along. This is the paradox. We think we are searching for God, for peace, for love. But what we are really searching for is the place within ourselves where the beloved already resides. Not above, not beyond, but within. And to touch that place, we must stop running. We must stop reaching. We must turn inward, not with force, but with reverence. It begins in the heart, not the physical heart, but the energetic center of your being, the place where grief and gratitude intertwine, the place where you've stored every hurt, every hope. To find the beloved, you must enter this temple with bare feet and open hands. You must bow before your own vulnerability. You must forgive yourself, not as a moral act, but as a spiritual necessity, because every wall you've built around your heart to protect yourself has also kept love out. And the beloved does not push, it waits. It waits for you to open. It waits for you to soften. It waits for you to weep if that's what it takes. Because only in the breaking do we become whole. You may not feel it all at once. It may come as a flicker, a moment of peace that has no cause, a sudden stillness in the middle of chaos, a tear you didn't expect, a breath that feels deeper than the body, and in that moment, you'll know love is here. Not outside, not in words or gestures, but as presence, as truth, as something so intimate it cannot be named, only felt, only surrendered to. And the more you surrender, the more it grows, not as an experience, but as a state of being. You begin to move through the world differently, not grasping, not defending, but radiating, not needing others to complete you because you have remembered your wholeness, not seeking to be loved because you have become love itself. And in this becoming, life transforms, not because the world changes, but because you no longer resist it. You no longer divide it. You no longer demand it give you what you already carry inside. You become a vessel for the beloved, a mirror in which others can see their own light reflected back. This is not theory. It is the living, breathing truth of your soul. And once it awakens, it will never let you forget. Even when you fall asleep again, even when you doubt, even when you feel lost, the beloved will call you back through dreams, through pain, through beauty, through silence, and each time it will ask the same question: will you love again? Will you open? And if you say yes, something miraculous happens. Life begins to dance with you. Not just the joyful parts, but all of it. Sorrow becomes sacred. Anger becomes energy. Loneliness becomes intimacy. You begin to see the beloved in everything. In the wind that touches your face. In the stranger who smiles. In the ache that refuses to leave. You realize that nothing has ever been separate. That even your suffering was a form of love. Love wearing the mask of pain to lead you back to yourself. Rumi saw the face of the beloved in everything, because he had become nothing. He had emptied himself so completely that only love remained. This is the invitation, not to become someone greater, but to become no one at all. To be so present, so surrendered, that you become transparent to the light. You no longer need to prove, to defend, to compare. You exist as an offering, and that offering is love. But even now, in the depths of divine remembrance, the journey is not over, because love, once awakened, does not settle. It expands, it flows outward. It longs to be shared, expressed, embodied. Divine love is not content to stay hidden in meditation rooms and sacred texts. It wants to live in your words, your hands, your gaze. It wants to be given to the world. Not through grand gestures, but through presence, through patience, through listening, through showing up again and again with an open heart, even when it hurts. And so we arrive here, not at the end, but at the beginning of living love, the beginning of walking through the world as a flame that does not burn but warms, as a silence that does not isolate but heals, as a presence that says to everyone you meet, you are not alone, you are not broken, you are love, you are love. And from here, the only step left is integration, to carry this love back into the world, to let the journey inward become a life lived outward, to take the presence you've found and make it your way of being. And so we close this circle, but not with an end, with a return. A remembering, a quiet devotion to live not from the mind, but from the heart. Now we step forward, into reflection, into stillness, into the mystery of the final breath. Now we return, not to where we started, but to where we always were, only now with open eyes. You have walked through solitude, stood still before the void, awakened to the power of presence, and remembered the love that cannot be named. But this was never a lesson. It was a remembering, a slow peeling back of what you are not, until what you are could begin to shine again. There is nothing left to seek, no teaching to grasp, no ritual to perform, only this breath, only this moment, only the quiet knowing that everything sacred is already here. This is the truth that Rumi carried in every verse, that the seeker is not separate from the sought, that the longing itself is a sign that the beloved is near, and that beyond the opposites of good and bad, right and wrong, there is a field of stillness, of union, of truth. And in his words, I'll meet you there. But what does it mean to carry this truth into the world? It means to live slowly, to listen more than you speak, to hold space for your own humanity and the humanity of others, to meet life not with judgment but with presence, to see the divine not only in sacred places but in dishes, in doorways, in disappointment, in delight. It means to become the quiet center in the storm, to allow the sacred to speak, not through preaching, but through how you walk, how you see, how you love. So as this journey comes to a close, let it not be an ending, let it be a beginning, a gentle vow to walk as one who remembers, to give yourself moments each day to return to the silence, to let the teachings of Rumi not stay in poetry, but take root in your presence. Let your solitude become strength. Let your stillness become insight. Let your heart become a doorway. And if ever you forget, return here, not to this video, but to yourself, to the one who was always listening, to the presence that never left. You are not on the journey, you are the journey. You are not seeking love, you are love, remembering itself. Thank you for walking with me, and now may you walk with yourself, with grace, with truth, with the beloved in your breath,